I thought this was some evil thing I was bringing upon myself, and I refused any kind of treatment.
Patty Duke was a major player in Hollywood's A-list before she passed away. People began to wonder who Sean's biological father was after one of her romantic episodes gave birth to Sean. Sean, her son, finally agreed to conduct a DNA test with his possible biological dads after a protracted search for the truth about who his biological father was. Would you like to discover the outcome of this perplexing plot? Follow us as we recount the true tale of a woman whose unwavering love for her son triumphed over any questions about his paternity. I think it's crucial to set the scene and learn Patty Duke's story before we get into these disclosures. Patty Duke, whose birth date was December 14, 1946, passed away on March 29, 2016. There were many highs and lows over her 69 years on our planet. She was a famous Hollywood actress who appeared in a plethora of films, including My Sweet Charlie, 1970, You'll Like My Mother, 1970, Call Me Anna, 1990, and The Miracle Worker, 1962. As the daughter of a cashier named Frances Margaret and a handyman and taxi driver named John Patrick Duke, Patty Duke did not come from a privileged background. Despite her Roman Catholic upbringing, she became a Christian as well. Growing up, she and her two brothers endured a challenging upbringing in Queens' Elmhurst area. Originally from Ireland, Patty Duke's family tree has 1/8 German ancestry. Before her untimely demise, Patty had a successful acting career that included parts in advertisements, a number of films, and other such endeavors. Around the age of 8, she began her career as a child actor. In 1958's The Goddess, she made her film debut. In 1963, Patty Duke became the youngest person to have a television show named after her, despite her early age. The Patty Duke Show was the name of this television program. She joined just a handful of women to hold the position of Screen Actors Guild president in 1985. She didn't deserve life's continued hardships, but there she was. She was someone who managed to pull through despite having a very troubled life, which included being taken advantage of by her talent managers. Nevertheless, not even Patty Duke's familiarity with and experience in enduring life's storms could have prepared her for the shocking revelation that left her completely speechless: the results of the paternity test on her son Sean. Hold on to the very end to find out what happened and how it began. Even her name, Patty, was bestowed upon her by her managers, the Rosses, rather than her parents. Their word was that Anna Marie had passed away. She was told, "You're Patty now," because her parents wanted her to be an actress like Patty McCormick. It is difficult to fathom the psychological toll that such a vulnerable and potential young person must have endured. What she did or didn't do as an adult was certainly influenced by this. The public scrutiny that accompanied her fame did not help matters, even though she was a well-respected actress. Even worse, her son Sean was likewise a media darling. Her private life became a public spectacle as a result of her celebrity status. Her diagnosis of bipolar disorder was made in 1982. She spoke out about mental health and advocated for it while she was alive. To give other individuals who are going through the same thing, undiagnosed bipolar disorder, something to lean on and follow, she even penned a book about it. Ironically, she ended up getting married 4 times as a young lady despite her childhood desire to become a nun. The following individuals were her husbands: Michael Tell, Harry Falk Jr., John Aston, and Michael Pierce. All 3 of the first marriages failed. She was only satisfied with the one starring Michael Pierce. Their marriage remained intact. My severe uncertainties over Sean's biological father only grew when each of his marriages came to an end. Patty is an inspirational figure since she overcame tremendous obstacles in her life and is a strong lady. This Hollywood celebrity made the best of her life despite having a troubled upbringing and a challenging adulthood. Her grit and determination shone through as she lived each moment to the fullest. She weathered the waves of adversity that life brought her way from an early age, and her story is captivating enough to make you want to read more. Even while her marriage history isn't everyone's cup of tea, It never diminished her strength or character. Her name will live on in Hollywood legend despite the mental struggles she endured from bipolar disease. Concerns over her famous kid and the uncertainty surrounding his biological father were a source of stress in Patty's life. Santa Monica, California is the site of Sean's birth on February 25, 1971. At the time of his birth, it was widely believed that Desi Arnaz, who was romantically involved with his mother, was actually his biological father. Michael Tell's alleged decision to marry his mother, Patty Duke, in an effort to salvage face, led to the misunderstandings that ensued. Tell published the Las Vegas Israelite newspaper in addition to writing and promoting music. It was said that when Patty became pregnant with Sean, she was unsure if Desi Arnaz or Michael Tell was responsible for her pregnancy. This was done to assist her maintain her dignity, to spare her the embarrassment of having to come clean about her uncertainty about the child's biological father. Tell proposed that they tie the knot. They tied the knot on June 26, 1970. Unexpectedly, the duration of this union was just 13 days. There had been an end to the marriage even before Sean was born. There were a lot of unknowns and concerns in the circumstances of Sean's birth. After dating for 2 years, Patty finally tied the knot with actor John Astin on August 5, 1972. At his wedding to Patty, Astin requested people to speak, and Sean, who was just 18 months old at the time, looked up at John and yelled out, "Daddy!" It's safe to say that the father-son tie between the two had always been present. Next, John Astin took Astin under his wing and raised him as his own son. After then, in 1973, Duke gave birth to Mackenzie Astin, who would later become Sean's brother. It seems that acting was in Mackenzie's blood as well. She, too, became an actress. Divorced in 1985, Patty's marriage to Astin had barely lasted a few years. After Sean's mother introduced him to Arnaz, the two became romantically involved. Not only that, but he became close to Astin and Tell, the latter of whom may have been his biological father. Therefore, we needed to know, who was Sean's father? Who might it have been, Astin, Tell, Arnaz? Despite the endless conjecture, Sean received paternal care from all three of his dads, even though Astin was the one who really reared him from the moment he was born. The fact that Sean was likewise well known did not help matters. Just that his mom was a famous Hollywood actress wasn't good enough. The suspicions regarding his parentage were already rampant before he became an actor. From the comfort of his own home, Sean witnessed his mother's titanic struggle with mental illness, which included manic depression. Sean and his brother Mackenzie once described what it was like to grow up with an emotionally disturbed mother in an interview with 2020ths. When it came to their mother's manic outbursts, Sean, being the bigger brother, always took the hit harder than Mackenzie. His mother believed he was constantly striving for perfection, so she became angry with him one day when he was constructing a model airplane, he said. If that was her thought, then why? Simply put, he created his model while simultaneously cleaning up. He remarked, "I could hear the sound of Mom sort of going through the hallways like, the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And she came in with this glass of water and throws the water in my face, and then she destroyed the model." Sean received his Bachelor of Arts degree from UCLA after attending Crossroads High School for the Arts and Stella Adler Conservatory of Music in Los Angeles, within the fields of American literature and culture and history. Over the course of his lengthy acting career, he has acted in several films, including The Goonies, 1985, Toy Soldiers, 1991, and No Good Nick, 2021, to name a few. It wasn't limited to just one or two partnerships for the famous Hollywood actress Patty Duke. As far as anyone knows, she had romantic relationships with 5 men while she was alive. She entered into matrimony with 4 of the guys and had a one-night stand with the 5th. Identifying these 5 males may be on your mind at the moment. To learn the names and chronology of these 4 men's entrances into Patty's life, continue watching the film. This is an intriguing and unusual life narrative. It may be assumed that Patty Duke's first husband was Michael Tell. This, however, is not the case. She was already married to Harry Falk when Tell entered the scene. Harry, a television director, was 13 years her senior. They were married for 4 years after dating for a year. She wed him at the tender age of 18, therefore ending her relationship with the Rosses, who had been her guardians and managers since infancy. From 1965 until 1969, she was married to Falk. Mood swings and substance abuse were part of her life during the marriage. Her bipolar condition, which went untreated for a while, was to blame. This put a tremendous pressure on the marriage, which ultimately led to its dissolution. No child was born to the couple. Eventually, Patty would give birth to Sean. Following her failed marriage to Harry Falk, Patty had an affair with Desi Arnaz Jainar, who was 7 years her junior, from March 1970 forward. Desi Ball's mother, the comedienne Lucille Ball, was bitterly opposed to her son's short-lived romance. Despite the strong disapproval from his mother's quarters, they continued to visit each other. Their mother's dislike and hostility to Arnaz and her son's relationship was obvious. Even in public, she was strongly against it. Their mummy-opposed romance terminated after several months of dating. Following her 1970 marriage to Harry Falk, Patty wed Michael Tell. He promoted rock music in the United States. However, his primary occupation was that of a writer and publisher. He started working in the music industry right after high school and retired in 2010. Tell and Patty's marriage was doomed from the start. Patty was not pleased to see that Michael Tell was clearly a highly wasteful spender. She recalled that following their marriage, she had to visit several casinos on multiple occasions to settle his gambling bills. Patty learned how incompatible their personalities were and how little time they had to get to know each other before marriage, which made it all the more difficult for them to stay married. The couple's brief 13-day marriage ended in divorce. The likelihood that Tell was Patty's biological father to Sean was not remotely remote, so naturally there were rumblings about the subject. In 1972, Patty Duke would go on to wed John Astin. The union was her third. The couple was married for 13 years until 1985. John Astin and Patty's romance began long before they were married. Until Sean was born, she did not tell anybody about her romance. Who was Sean's father, Arnaz, Tell, or Astin? This further muddied the waters. Regardless, after being born Sean Patrick Duke, Astin adopted him and changed his name to Sean Astin. The closeness between Sean and John Astin, who reared him from a young age till he grew up, was evident. At long last, Michael Pierce arrived. From 1986 to 2016, Patty and Pierce were married. She remained his wife up until her 2016 death from sepsis. In 1989, they became parents again after adopting a boy called Kevin. They crossed paths while Pierce was serving as a consultant for the development of A Time to Triumph. He was a drill sergeant. Patty passed away after 30 years of marriage. Prior to Patty's passing on March 29, 2016, they had commemorated their 30th anniversary together on March 15th. Even in death, she was survived by Michael Pierce and their children, a testament to how much she valued her marriage. Michael Pierce, Desi Arnaz, Michael Tell, and John Astin were Sean's dads. Nobody knew for sure which of these four men was his biological father. Michael Pierce obviously wasn't one of them, among the first three. There was bound to be some confusion about his real father among Desi Arnaz, Michael Tell, and John Astin, because all three of these men were intimately associated with his mother from the time he was conceived until he was born. Sean, being a little lad, must have found this a very difficult period. Being a public figure with the attention of the media and the general public didn't help matters. Sean was a star, and she was too. Consequently, the media used private information for their own entertaining purposes. These tasty bits of information were devoured by the media because that's just how it is. As Patty and Sean rose to renown, they were the subjects of both genuine interest and wild speculation. What makes this story intriguing is that not even Patty Duke knew for sure who Sean's father was until the DNA test was conducted. Regarding this aspect, Sean handled the situation with ease, despite the fact that growing up with different dads was a complex ordeal. It was difficult to live with the fact that Arnaz, Tell, and Aston could not definitively say who it was. Despite everything, Sean had a strong bond with every one of his dads, even Pierce. However, he still yearned to know his original father, no matter what. He began dating Arnaz when he was 14 years old, after his mother Patty informed him that Arnaz was actually his biological father. Even though his mother Patty had informed him that Arnaz was his father, he was still determined to uncover the truth. It just so happened that he met someone from Michael's family in his mid-20s who revealed their familial connection to him. This ignited an insatiable thirst inside him to uncover the identity of his biological father. Arnaz, Tell, and Aston were his 3 possible biological dads. Therefore, he decided to do a DNA test with all 3 of them. After all these years of guesswork and uncertainty, he finally felt the need to uncover the truth. Although his mother had informed him that Desi Arnaz was his real father, the results of the test proved that Michael Tell was actually his biological father. Despite the fact that the much-needed test simply confirmed his biological father's identity, he was able to maintain ties with all 4 of his fathers: Desi Arnaz, Michael Tell, John Aston, and Michael Pierce. He stated, "Desi Arnaz Jr. loves me, and I love him. We are so close, science tells me that he's not my biological father. Science tells me that Mike Tell is. I can call any of them on the phone anytime I want to. John, Desi, Mike, or Papa Mike, my 4 dads." Everyone could tell that Sean saw having 4 fathers as a blessing, even though it may have been too much for some. While Patty strongly disagreed with the test result, she chose to stand by her son's truth. Even Patty had her share of problems in her own life. Those were quite difficult. Despite her celebrity and the public's adoration, she kept her private life out of the spotlight. Later in her life, though, something more urgent arose. A mental condition was diagnosed with her. Patty Duke suffered from bipolar disorder. May that have been the starting point for the difficulties she had in her private life? She had extremely unpredictable behavior, swung between moods, and misused alcohol and narcotics prior to her 1982 diagnosis of bipolar disorder. She had it bad from the start, coming from a destitute family and then being transferred to live with the Rosses, who even changed her identity. Her remarks state, "My father abandoned our family when I was 7 years old, and we lived in extreme poverty. He remained a mystery to me." New York theater managers John and Ethel Ross encouraged me to acting. They had assisted my brother Raymond in his early career in show business. They started to dominate my life and career as I got increasingly popular in commercials and little parts. We kept to ourselves. Outside of the set, I only saw the Rosses. I was never allowed to have an opinion on anything because of how they overly controlled my life. This included my personal hygiene routine, clothing choices, and even the act of locking the door to my room. Like a typical Stepford kid, I became flawless. She had a less-than-ideal existence, what with living with undiagnosed bipolar disorder until 1982, her 3 marriages, and finally finding permanent love in her 4th marriage to Michael Pierce. A psychiatrist's 1982 diagnosis of manic depression helped stabilize her bipolar disorder. To manage her erratic moods, he recommended lithium. Patty said that this was life-saving and life-giving, since she had no ability to make any long-term decisions prior to this diagnosis and medication. She found it much simpler to handle her bipolar condition when she was diagnosed and started taking medication. After this, Patty made good use of her celebrity status to promote mental health awareness. You could see she had her own set of problems. Quite a few of them, really. According to her, yes, I was successful, but the price I paid was terrible. Given the difficulties she had in her own life, her meaning is pretty clear. Her autobiography, Call Me Anna, was initially published on July 1, 1987. Beyond being an inspiring tale of a lady who overcame several obstacles beginning in infancy on her path to becoming a renowned actor, it serves as a beacon of hope for others who are suffering with untreated manic depression. Throughout her life, from childhood into maturity, she overcame many obstacles which she detailed in her autobiography. She discussed the ways in which self-acceptance and advocacy were ingrained in her. To those who are struggling from manic depression, this book provides valuable knowledge, affirmation, and strength by showing them that they are not alone. One of the many significant legacies that Patty left behind before she passed away was this book, in addition to her illustrious acting career and other accomplishments. Things that ought to be a blessing sometimes turn out to be something more akin to a curse. Given the whole paternity drama, Patty and Sean's popularity, which is admirable in and of itself, seemed to be used as a weapon against them. The details of their private lives were relentlessly covered by news sources. For quite some time, news outlets carried stories on the paternity tests and the subsequent DNA results. There was one huge, unavoidable cost to their popularity, and that was it. If it were about some random person, not even their intriguing narrative would generate the same level of attention as it did with Patty and Sean Duke's family. Beyond the paternity scandal, Patty's battle with bipolar disorder was widely recognized due to her status as a public figure and celebrity. Attempts by the public and media to shield her from their scrutiny were futile. She led a peaceful life after her marriage to Michael Pierce, and the couple settled onto a farm outside Hayden, Idaho. One of the most powerful kinds of love is the love of a mother. The motherhood of a kid must not be ambiguous. Even though Patty Duke was very confused about her son's biological paternity, she never stopped loving him. He knew she was emotionally unstable, even though he had to take a lot of the heat for her manic depression before a doctor diagnosed her. She continued to care for him when her marriage to Michael Tell ended by marrying John Aston, who went on to adopt him. The proper thing for a mother to do is to stick by her child no matter what. The profound comprehension of the nature of family and affection amongst family members remained with her. Patty and Sean's relationship endured the highs and lows that came with Patty's father's bewilderment and their time in the spotlight, because maternal love is powerful. His mother's attention of his needs for protection, provision, and affection was evident from the moment of his birth. Patty continued to stand by her son's truth, even when he took a DNA test with each of his 3 possible biological dads, and the results revealed that Michael Tell was his father, even if she didn't trust the results. Desi Arnaz was the man she had always suspected to be the boy's father, but she was determined not to interfere with Sean's pursuit of the truth. In an interview she gave to People in 2001, she stated, "So I'm not buying that exam. As long as my truth is honored, even if it isn't endorsed, I can support his truth. Everything I know to be true, I have already told him. I will think about Tell's paternity until God meets me in the face and says, 'Anna Marie, you have been mistaken all these years.'" Thus, Patty's unwavering belief in Tell as Sean's father persisted despite the DNA test's findings. Prior to this, she had informed Sean that Desi Arnaz was his biological father. When he was 14 years old, she informed him of this. That was her reality, and it had nothing to do with what the DNA test revealed. But that didn't stop her from being there for her kid when he needed it. Despite the scandals, her bipolar disease, and her several marriages, her love for her son remained unshakable. A deep and abiding affection shone through. Patty Duke's shock to Sean's fatherhood and the unorthodox narrative of it are precisely what you saw. Because it demonstrates that everyone's life is unique, this is an excellent story to listen to. If you want to be the first to know when a new story like this one lands on this YouTube channel, subscribe today.